What's up, guys? Welcome back to the Mobile Max Car Audio channel. Today I have a quick video for you on how to bypass the factory amp. To get to this location, to get to the step I'm at, you're going to need to take the glove box out. And it's going to be a couple of pressing on the glove box, a couple of clips, getting those loose, and then a couple of screws to get it completely out and out of your way. That's going to be your easiest way to deal with this. And then to remove the amp from its location, it has two bolts down here. You can't really see, I don't have a good angle, but there's two bolts down here and one up here behind this. So you're gonna need a long socket to get back there, but once you get those three bolts, so here, let me show them to you on the amp. You have two there, you see those two metal little tabs, and then this one right here. And this one you don't have to take off, you just have to loosen. The bottom two you do have to take off. Then there's a plastic piece that goes over here, and you're just gonna basically undo all that, and then you should end up with something like this where it's loose. So back to bypassing the amp. So now you're here, you're gonna bypass your amp for whatever reason. We'll talk about a couple later on, but I just want to get to the actual demonstration first. So a lot of people have different ideas about bypassing the amp. When I hear amp bypass, I think of closing this circuit without this amp. So what I mean by that is, and you're going to either cut these and wire them together, or you're going to plug something into here and here that will wire them together basically. Now if you are in a situation where you're going to need to cut, these are the wires coming from the radio, so to say. So these are all the speaker wires that you would hook up at the radio that come back to here, and this is your output to all your speakers. So if you're gonna run deck power, meaning you're gonna use this radio to power your door speakers, this would be a scenario where you would cut both of these and wire them together. If you are going to use the aftermarket radio to power another amp, then what you're going to do is leave this black plug alone, run your RCAs from your radio to your amp, and then hook up your speaker wires to here, so you have one central speaker wire location, and they will run from here to everywhere in the car, so you don't have to run new wiring everywhere. This plug, all the wires run here that run throughout the car. So in that case, you would only need to cut this one. Now I say cut because that's what people normally do, but that's not something you have to do anymore. So we've come prepared with some products to show you guys. Alright guys, before I jump any further into this video, I just want to give a shout out to our channel. Nah, I'm just kidding with you guys. I just want to say, if you would take the time to give the video a like and subscribe, it helps out the channel a ton. The information I'm giving to you is free. I've researched it, I'm sure you can find it on your own, but it's very convenient for it to be in one location along with other information that will help you solve the problem you're having. So in exchange, I just ask that you give the video a like and subscribe. It doesn't cost you anything. But alright guys, let's jump back into the video. So our amp bypass product allows you to do just that. But in order to do what we just spoke about, which is close this circuit, you are going to need to cut some wires and splice some wires together. So our amp bypass will include this harness with the RCAs and then female to female connectors, and then this harness that has 17 feet of speaker wire and the connector that hooks up to here. So what you're going to do is you're going to cut this down to size. You're not going to use this power wire, you might use it in a future install or something. And then the other step is to cut all of these down. So here they are labeled. You have center, front left, front right, sub, rear left, rear right. So you're going to cut whatever you're going to use, which in this case, if you're going to bypass the amp and use deck power, meaning that at the back of the radio you hook this up, the white plug that normally they sell you, you hooked it up to the speaker outputs of your radio, and you didn't use our kit, you didn't use the RCAs, then you have a high level signal coming from the radio to this plug, to here, down here, out of this to this black plug. So here you have a high level signal. When you complete this circuit, you will have an amplified signal going to each speaker, so you can use deck power or the amplifier within the actual radio to power the door speakers. And that's something that a lot of people want to do or ask to do is, hey, my factory amp doesn't work anymore. I don't want to buy a replacement. Is there a way that I could use the radio, because the radio has a built-in amplifier, to power the speakers in the car? So what I'm going to show you is how you would do that. You can, again, cut these and wire them together. You would just need this. You can pause it here. You need to match up the colors for front left, front right to the colors that are going outbound. So the inbound colors to the outbound colors. Or you can save yourself some trouble and use our product to help you do so. And basically what that will do is give you something to plug in here, give you something to plug right here, and now all you have to do is connect these together by color matching them. So you're going to have a pair of greens, you're going to have a pair of grays, a pair of whites, and a pair of purples that you're going to cut and hook up together. So let me get those out of the way. So these you're going to cut and hook up. Then you have your center and your sub. These aren't going to be available to you. There's going to be no signal coming from here if you're using deck power. So you can just cut these, remove these, leave them alone, whatever you want. And then on here, you're also going to have wires that aren't used, and those are going to be these last 4 wires here. So you have 2 on this side, which looks like gray yellow and blue purple or brownish. Then you have a white red and a green white. So the last 4 pins on this right edge where my thumb is, you won't use. So I'm going to hook this up and show you what it looks like, so you have a working example in your mind and you can understand what you need to get to. Alright guys, just to reiterate, for this particular instance that we're talking about right now, you want to use the amplifier within your aftermarket radio, whatever radio it is, to power the speakers in the doors. And when you installed that aftermarket radio, you didn't use RCAs, you used this connector or one similar like it, where you hook up speaker wires to the speaker wires of the radio. You didn't use RCAs, you used speaker wires, so you're sending a high level signal. So with our amp bypass, the parts I show you, you can cut them up and make this. So here we just taped up the wires we didn't use out of this guy, which are our pair of oranges, our pair of browns, and that blue wire. And then we taped up the wires here that we didn't use, which are this gray, yellow, white, green, white, red, and blue, brown. So that leaves us with a pair of whites, a pair of blacks, a pair of purples, and a pair of greens. And now to bypass the amp, all you have to do is so now the aftermarket radio is powering all the speakers in the car, and you can get rid of the factory amp. This is great from when your factory amp does not work anymore and you don't want to spend the money to replace it. Our amp bypass kit is actually cheaper than a used amp. It can be the same price depending where you find one, but it is something you can do. And some decks have high output, meaning some stereos like Sony has a high output deck that you can leverage this way to power your speakers. I wouldn't really recommend this, again, unless your factory amplifier is out and you are running aftermarket subs, because what will happen is when you use deck or stereo power to power the speakers in the door by installing this bypass, you will lose the factory subwoofer. So this puts out 5 channels, actually 6 channels of output, front left, front right, rear left, rear right, subwoofer, and center. When you bypass it, you will lose the center channel and the sub, but you will obviously keep the door speakers. And if you're running aftermarket subs, then it's no problem, you're keeping your low end. But if you're replacing your amp and you're going to bypass it because it no longer works, you will lose the subwoofer, and that's a pretty important thing. So you want to make sure that you either install aftermarket subs or just replace the factory amp and don't bypass it like this. Alright guys, so in this scenario you can use an aftermarket radio or the factory radio, and what you're going to be doing is replacing the factory amp. So in this instance, we're not bypassing, we're replacing. And in order to replace the factory amp, you're going to need a 5-channel amp. You could do a 4-channel and a sub, but the most efficient, easiest way is going to be a 5-channel amp. So this is an NVX, where's the model number? So you guys, this is a NVX JAD 900.5. So this is a 5-channel amp, a rather small amp. You can tuck it in below the seat, wherever you want to install it in the trunk. So you guys, so this NVX amp is rather small. You can install it almost anywhere. So for this instance, I'm going to show you how to replace the factory amp with an aftermarket amp using our amp bypass. So in this scenario, we need to get power to the amp, you need to ground the amp, and you need to get remote turn on to the amp. So power and ground, I'm gonna leave up to you. Power wire, you're just gonna, pop these panels off, run it through the firewall to the battery like a normal amp install. I'm sure you're familiar with that. Ground, you're gonna have to find a ground location, peel back the paint, hook up your ground. Now you have those two, I'll show you how to get the rest of the connections. So your amp remote turn on is gonna come from here, and then all the speaker wires are gonna run to here. So I'm gonna hook that up, and then I'm gonna demonstrate what it will look like. Alright guys, before I show you what it looks like when you hook it up, I want to preface this by saying that if you're going to do this with an aftermarket radio, you're going to need to run RCAs yourself, or you would have needed to install your aftermarket radio with our accessories. So if you're watching this and you installed your radio with our DIY kit or our plug and play or our complete kit, and you remember this connector to the RCA connections, you don't have to take the radio out. You can grab the RCA signal down here, and I'll show you what I mean in just a second. But if you didn't use our accessories, you hooked up the radio yourself, you're gonna need to run RCA straight from the back of the radio to the amp. All right, so back to what I was saying. So again, we're assuming you used our accessories for this part. So, like before, this connector hook up to here. Now we need to get our signal, our RCA signal, from here to the amp. So for that, just grab a pair of RCA wires, and I apologize, this isn't the cleanest, but it's just for demonstration purposes. So here we have rear left sub, we have center, which comes here but we're not using, front left, front right, rear right, and then front right. So we're gonna hook up to our fronts. Obviously you would need 6 or 5 RCAs here. So again, here you're gonna need to hook up 6 RCAs or 5 RCAs, one to each of the wires that have a connector, a female connector on them. So we're still missing another set of RCAs, but this is for demonstration purposes, so I'm not going to include them. So now your signal's coming from there, and now you can run these to your amp. So this is front. So now your signal's coming from there and to your amp. So now your amp's getting the signal that it needs for audio. We're just gonna get it out of the way. So now your amp's getting that low level signal that it needs for audio. Obviously, you're going to run more RCAs. This is just demonstration. Now you need an amp turn on to turn the amp on when the radio turns on. So now you're going to need to hook up your remote wire, the blue wire that you get, to your blue-white wire, blue-white wire right here. This is your amp turn on. So this will have 12 volts when the vehicle turns on. You're going to hook this up to here, solder it, twist it together however you want, and then you're going to run that to your amp for your amp turn on. So you'll put that into the correct terminal. Come on, buddy. Ooh, almost in. So you'll put that into the correct terminal, and then it'll run to here, and you'll hook it up to your blue-white wire. So now you have audio going from the aftermarket radio or factory radio, low-level signal, to the amp. You have your power connection that you ran before, your ground connection you ran before to your amp, and now you have your amp turn on. So now your amp has signal and it's turning on when it's supposed to. The next step is to get that signal to all the speakers. Next up is to get that signal to all the speakers in the car. And that's what these terminals here are for, are your speaker outs. So we have your front, your rear, and then your sub. So to do that, now you're going to use our other part of our bypass harness. Alright guys, so we have now our speaker wire hooked up. So our speaker wire is coming from that same location, and it's going to now get hooked up to the outputs of the aftermarket amp. So we're going to be hooking them up to here by color code. So you have a pair of whites, you have a pair of grays, you have a pair of greens, you have a pair of purples. Those are the ones you want to focus on first. So your pair of whites are going to be your front left, front right. So here they are. I'm sorry, your pair of whites are going to be your front left, positive and negative. Then you're going to have a pair of grays, which are going to be your passenger, positive and negative. Then you're going to have a pair of greens, and it's going to be a solid green and then a green with a black stripe. Don't get confused, because there is a green with a white stripe, and that we will talk about later on. But it's green with solid green and then green with a black stripe, and then you're just going to have purple and purple with a black stripe. So those are going to hook up. Purple with a black stripe is going to be your passenger rear, and you're going to put them into the correct terminals, positive and negative for each, channel 1, channel 2, channel 3, channel 4. Then you have your sub. Your sub is going to be, so now the last thing you want to hook up is your sub. Now if you're running a big amp like this guy, which is putting out at least 300 watts to the sub, you're going to blow your factory sub. And also, if you're going to do that much power, I recommend running a different kind of speaker wire, thicker gauge, straight back to the sub. If you want convenience and you're not going to be cranking the sub all the way up or riding around with the volume all the way up, then then you could possibly use this method. But those last two wires you're going to want are your green white and your brown with a yellow stripe. Yep. So you're going to want your green white and your brown with the yellow stripe, these two right here. Those are going to be your sub. So then you'll hook that up to your sub, and now all the speakers in the car except the center channel are getting audio out from these terminals. If you want to hook up the center channel, you're going to bridge it, whatever you're going to do. That's going to be this brown cable with a blue stripe and this white red cable. So these two lead back to the center channel, and you can bridge them between the fronts, but you'd have to know what you're doing and how your speakers are compared to your sub. It's just a little more advanced. I recommend don't even bother. Just leave the center channel unhooked And again, we provide you with the center channel audio out. So if you were using the factory radio, you could preserve that center channel if you went with a 6-channel amp and then a different sub amp. The reason why this 5-channel amp can't do it is because most of the times that 5th channel is reserved for sub, and it doesn't allow you to tweak it to be a full output, or it's a ton more power than the rest of the channels, so it's too much power for that center channel to handle. Alright guys, so in this scenario, we are replacing the factory amp with an aftermarket amp. We are using our amp bypass to feed a low level signal to our amp, and then using our amp bypass to grab the output signal of the amp, and then feeding it to the car via this plug, because this plug then has the connections that go to every single speaker in the car. In order to accomplish this as shown in this demonstration, you would have needed to use our installation accessories when installing your aftermarket radio, or similar ones where you use RCA outs to the factory wiring. So if you installed our harness, then you are golden. You can use this method. If you didn't install this harness and you want to use our amp bypass, you still can, but you will just not use this connector. You will just not end up using this black connector. Instead, you will run your RCAs straight to the back of your aftermarket radio. Alright guys, so if you install an aftermarket radio in your car without our accessories, you can still use this package. You will just run your RCAs straight to the back of the radio instead of hooking them up here. You won't use that black plug at all, and you'll also need to grab the remote out from the back of the radio. That's only if you didn't use our accessories and you have an aftermarket radio. If you use the factory radio, then you will need to use this black plug, and obviously everything that we talked about applies. Alright guys, that's really it, wrapping it up for the amp bypass that I showed you earlier and the amp replacement. What I want to show you next is our plug and play amps. You can kind of create these your own also if you order our bypass and then add some terminals, because our bypass, these 2 terminals don't come with it. You would have to add those yourself, so you couldn't grab power from here unless you cut these, and I'll show you what I mean in just a second. So I'm going to get this disconnected. I'm going to show you what our 4-channel plug and play amp looks like, and then I'll be right back. Also, something I forgot to mention, you could just hook this here and then run these wires straight to the back of the radio and bypass your amp that way. It's the same thing as hooking these 2 together as I showed you earlier. That would bypass your amp. If you find that easier, then you can do that. The only reason why why the product isn't marketed that way is because you don't want to have to take the radio out to bypass it. You could just bypass it right here instead of doing all that extra work. Alright guys, so before you get to installation of your amp, and in our research, this is something we had to do, and we can finally actually do it the right way because we have our audio control RTA. So what we're going to do is we're going to take our DD1 track CD, load it into our radio. So we're going to load our CD into our radio, and basically all that has is some tones for us to mess with. So this is something I'm not going to be the best at explaining, but I'll try my best. Is when music is recorded at a studio, it gets recorded at a certain level, a certain decibel. Most of the times that music isn't going to be recorded at 0 dB. It'll be recorded at -5, and then after so many masters, downloads, uploads, exchange of music, it's going to start to degrade in sound quality and come lower. So when you go to set your gains, you normally set your gains at -5 dB, sometimes -10, depending on kind of music you listen to, etc. But basically, you need to first know what kind of voltage you're dealing with and what kind of voltage is available to you from the factory radio. That is because you might need a line driver or another accessory to boost that voltage before you feed it to your amp, because if you don't, then the signal might be too low. You might need to turn your gain too high, and you'll introduce a lot of noise into the system. So you always want to see what kind of voltage you're working with. If it's variable voltage, and what is it max out at, what is the minimum, to make sure that your install is going to go as planned. So what we're going to do is we're going to go to track 3. All right, guys, so now we're taking a look at the signal. We have our RTA hooked up. We have our audio control RTA working. You can see we're running that 1000 hertz test tone, and you can see there's 1000 hertz. Here's our voltage meter, our oscilloscope. Can't really make out the wave yet, but I really want to pay attention to this voltage because it's going to determine how high we have to set our gains. So I'm going to put the radio up some more. I'm going to get up to almost max, say right about there. That's almost max, 36. So we're at 0.5 volt. And what does our RTA look like? Let me scale that down. So yeah, it's 70 dB, 80 dBs barely. And then our oscilloscope, you can see our wave is still good. So now I'm gonna go to max, and you can see our wave is not peaking. We don't have these flat tops, so it means our signal is still clean and our RTA is still picking it up. Our voltage meter is scary though. So here we don't even have a volt yet. We're almost there, but amps do have a way to compensate for this. They go down to maybe 0.03 or 0.3 of a volt. Most do, so we're pretty good here. This is enough signal, but I just wanted to show this to you guys to let you know that this signal is rather low coming from the factory radio, and you will have to turn your gain maybe a little bit higher than you're used to get the volume you want, and to actually make sure that your signal doesn't clip. All right, guys, so here is our 4-channel plug and play amp. Again, these are MB Corp Motorsport amps. They're rated to be outside. Obviously, it can work in inside conditions. You can see the footprint, very similar. Here are the connections coming out of it, and here are the connections going to the factory. So I'm going to hook these up, and then I'll get right back to you. So installation is rather easy. You're going to hook those up, connect them first, then you're going to grab your amp, and you're going to hook these up. So you see you have front, rear, and then you have some controls. So front left. Sorry. Front left. We at a party we don't wanna be at. Turn the tempo, we can hear ourselves. So let's rather kiss them right back. With all these people all around, crippling anxiety. Alright guys, and that's really it. Once that's all plugged in, these controls are gonna be set for you. Then these will be set for you. You can mess with these if you want to. I don't recommend it. We set them with our oscilloscope, make sure they're right where they need to be. But now all you have to do is take this guy, tuck it up in there, match one of the screw hole locations in this bottom corner here where my finger is. It's hard to see. So right here, there's going to be a screw hole location. You're going to match that up, and then you're just going to tuck the wires, and that's it. Installation is really simple. I want to give you a little demo of it, so let me just get that set up. Be like that, but I'm not myself. The night you're gone, there ain't no way I'm moving on. I'm not afraid to leave you back. Alright guys, you could use this amp with the factory radio or aftermarket radio. Again, the 4-channel amp, you're gonna lose the subwoofer, so we assume you're running you're gonna with this 4-channel amp, you're gonna lose your subwoofer, so we assume you're running your own subs, and then also you will lose the center channel even if you have the factory radio. So I want to make sure I just let you know that. But as you can see, plug and play installation, you just tuck it up there, put that one screw in, and you're all set. And now I'm going to show you the 5-channel amp. I just want to show you the 4-channel amp first. Alright guys, here's the 5-channel amp. You can see a similar footprint. The 4-channel is a little smaller. The connections changed a little. The RCAs are now out and about instead of how they were before. And because this does have a sub, you get and because this does have a sub, you get a bass knob for it. So I'm gonna plug this in, hook it up, and show you guys what it sounds like. Oh, what the fuck was that? So the 5-channel amp comes with some extra accessories. The 4-channel amp you can just buy, plug it right in, you're all set. With the 5-channel amp, you're going to need to replace that factory sub. And when you replace that factory sub, you're going to need to sound deaden this back deck. So we include some sound deadening material with the 8-inch version, and this adapter plate with the 8-inch version. So if you want to upgrade the sub back here, this is one of the packages available. It'll come with a free air sub like this one, this bracket, and some sound deadening material. Now, if you don't want to go through the hassle of removing this rear deck and putting all the sound material down, we have another option for you. Alright guys, so if you want to update the sub, but you don't want to go through the hassle of replacing, taking the seats out and getting rid of that rear deck and making, like, soundproofing it, replacing the sub, you can use our other solution, which is this downfiring sub. So this sub is another MB quart slim type subwoofer in a downfiring box that is sealed. So this sub is another slim MB quart sub that is inside a downfiring box that it's sealed, so it sounds really good, has good bass response, and you can just tuck it away in the trunk and hook it up to the connector up there that you can reach with underneath with your hand. So let me show you what I'm talking about. So here is the sub. As you can see, it's in a downfiring box. There's a lot of stuff in the trunk, but I'll still show you what I'm talking about. You would then hook it up to the factory sub connector just like that. Hide that wire, run it somewhere within the trunk, and then leave the box there tucked away nicely with the wire hidden. And this is a downfiring box. So what that means is that the sub is located on the bottom of it, and it is firing down, and it's a sealed box, so it has good bass response, and it can hit pretty decent bass in terms of shaking the car. You'd be surprised. I'm going to try to give you a demo, but this is your other option if you don't want to remove the rear deck and do all that sound deadening. You can go the easier route and just connect that connector that comes with the kit, and then put this box in your trunk. And call it a day. Very convenient, very easy to install, and again, it goes with that 5-channel amp that we are selling on our store. But alright guys, this one installs kind of the same way in terms of mounting it. So you're going to tuck the wire, put this up there, screw that one hole, and you're all set. This one's going to be a little trickier to stick up there because of its added length, but it fits up there. Then you just have to tuck the wiring and you're all set. But alright guys, I hope this video was helpful. I hope there was information in this video that helped you out. Again, this will work with a factory radio or an aftermarket radio. It's just a matter of setting the gains accordingly. You'll let us know in your order. We'll match everything the way it's supposed to be, and you'll be all set. As always guys, thanks for watching. I appreciate the support. Make sure you give the video a like. Make sure you subscribe. Again, there's always content on our channel regarding Acuras, Acura TLs. We're branching out into other things as well. So stay tuned, and thanks for watching.